How much of yourself is in your own story? Oh my goodness. How much of yourself do you put into the stories you tell? Or like your own
Well, I'll tell
personal
you.
journey?
Yes, of course. Well, my first book, Crisis of Faith, is about two best friends, their childhood trauma, and they grow up to run a safe house. And so in the story, Faith is the main character, and her best friend is Desi. And Faith and Desi grow up across the street from one another, and they pretend like they are what they call daddy's angels, and they're helping people in the neighborhood. And so my best friend actually grew up across the street from me, and her name was Lisa, not Desi, but her last name was Bright. And so in for me, I grew up in a small home with a lot of people. I was the youngest of 5 children, and I would go to her house for peace because it was just she and her sister. And for me, that was a very light-filled home. Not only were they Christians, but they were just practicing Christians. They had a servant's heart,
Mhm.
and they were very keenly aware that I would go over there just to relax and get out of the chaos of my home. And so in Crisis of Faith, Faith and Desi, they live across the street from each other. They sort of have those same family dynamics. My best friend and I had godly men for daddies. They were involved in our softball team and in all of our activities. They were good leaders in our home. And so in Crisis of Faith, you have sort of that same family dynamic going on. Now, the childhood trauma that is in Crisis of Faith, I was sexually abused as a child, and that does happen to Faith in the book, and she heals from that. So, a lot of that healing process that I went through is in there, but not at the same time. Like, Faith starts getting help immediately. I sort of I waited till I was in my early adulthood. I was in nursing school before I ever went to counseling in real life. But a lot of what I learned, I knew God was healing me early so I could help other people heal. And so this first book, Crisis of Faith, is a lot of my story in there. It is quite a bit in there. I have people to protect, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to make it fiction for that reason, to protect the people that I need to protect, but also because I really have a heart for these young girls to start their healing process earlier rather than later. In the book, Desi's sister passes away of cystic fibrosis. That did not happen in real life. And my best friend and I did not grow up to run a safe house. She is the director of a house, but it's a assisted living, and I went on to nursing. And in the book, Faith is in school. She's getting her master's in child psychology.
I love that. That's so special.
Mhm.
And in a way, I mean, both of you are running a safe house and just in a different perspective or light.
Yeah, yeah.
What challenges do you face when you write, like, especially writing from personal experience? What kind of challenges do you face when writing?
I think more than anything, it doesn't matter if you're in church or a Christian family or you're working for the Lord. I think that we experience spiritual battles.
Mhm.
And so trying to be authentic and raw and vulnerable can be difficult because we do in our flesh worry about what other people are going to think. It's the imposter syndrome that they talk about, whether you're doing a podcast or writing a book or sharing your testimony. I think naturally you hold back a little bit because you worry about what people think. And, in the end, we're not going to be responsible for what people think.
Yeah.
We're going to be responsible for the work that we do for Jesus and to help change hearts and grow God's kingdom. So I've really had to, I do a lot of heart work before I start working. I do a lot of prayer, worship, reading the Bible, because I want to be so filled with the Holy Spirit, and I want to have my armor on so that if when I'm writing and being real, that I don't allow the enemy to have space in my writing time.